Nice to meet you. You just finished residency, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's one of those things that it's so surreal when it actually ends because you think it's just going to keep on going forever. But I just finished at the end of June.
And you're OBGYN,
Yes, OBGYN.
and you're not done with your training. You're in like the 35th grade now. You're doing something else,
Correct. It
right?
just keeps on going. No, I'm doing 3 years of reproductive endocrinology and infertility. So I'll be starting my fellowship on August 1st.
All right, now that you've survived, I know it's easy because you just survived. How'd it go? How was residency? What did you like about residency? What was not so great?
It's kind of interesting. I've tried to do a lot of reflection on that just to, have some sort of meaningful thing to say here today, but it's kind of like what people say, like the days really are long, but the years go quickly. I remember thinking at the beginning of intern year how gruesome and long the hours were, and I couldn't believe that like I was going to be doing the exact same thing for 4 years because it feels like that will truly be forever. But as you get this graduated autonomy, it really becomes amazing to see the skills and the knowledge that you're able to develop throughout all of those years. And then by the end of your chief year, like you feel like you really could handle anything that can come through the door. So it's a really amazing feeling to see that growth. And I don't feel like I'm the same person that I started residency as, because you just experience so much personal and professional growth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a PGY 12. I've only been out for 6 years. I remember that transition, and I remember just being so tired, but also in a 4-year residency for emergency medicine, the fourth year is not that bad, and so I kind of felt like, okay, I'm in the second year, I'm really tired, but less than 2 years from now, I'll be a fourth year, and that'll be okay. And so I started doing the math of like, how am I going to survive this? Which is maybe a sign that it's a little bit much. Or as the kids say, it's that residency is a little extra. And let's just talk about like the nuts and bolts of the sort of the elephant in the room. It's like people are working 80 hours a week, more in some cases, less in others. Do you think that this is like the only way to train?
I don't know. I think it's hard, right? Because it's you have so much to cover, right? Especially in like procedural services, you have to be really good at what you do in order to feel confident in independent practice. And it's hard to imagine it being successful in any other way. And then you hear other people saying, back in my day, we did X amount of hours every day, and that's why we're so good at what we're doing. But I feel like the way that things are going now, I've been able to graduate with the skills that I'll be able to need to be able to perform and do things independently. But I see the argument for why more training would be better. It's just kind of hard to think about doing that and making those adjustments for more years or more hours per day.
Also, there's the culture of residency, which I always think is interesting. I actually have a theory, it's totally unsubstantiated, which is that people are mean and they yell because as like a proof of being important or as like proof that they can. Like it's almost like a hierarchical thing. Like, I don't know, but I
Oh,
also
that's what
feel
you
like,
think?
yeah, and I also, I don't know, it's like, yeah, it's like I can't yell at somebody, I'm gonna get fired. So but someone yells, they think that they're like invincible. I don't know. That's just one part of it. Like, I guess, do you think that you went to residency in the whatever you call these, the 20s, right? And I went to residency in like the teens, and I just feel like my attendings were like able to, in a bad way, could have been had like license to be a little bit more toxic without any recourse. Do you think that like that's changed?
I think so, but I think the way that I see that kind of behavior from other people is a little bit different. Like I see it more of like reflective of burnout. Like I feel like when people are more willing to be, really curt or rude to other people, it's more reflective on like their threshold of what they're currently able to handle at the moment. But maybe that's just, kind of what I've figured through my own like therapy and the way that I interpret other people's behavior. And, also learning to not take those things as personally.
Yeah.
But I do think that probably a lot of it does come from like hierarchy, a feeling of sense of self-importance, like you're saying, and feeling like validated in their own leadership or whatever positions as like the medical hierarchy. There's probably an element of that too.
And how about there's when I was in residency, there was just this idea of like self-care and a little bit of like resilience kind of stuff and there was other word wellness was like the buzzword. And I was always like, yeah, if you want us to have wellness, don't make us work 80 hours a week. Like that's it. Like everything else is like window
Yeah.
dressing. Um, I don't know. How did you feel? Did you feel like you were able to like take care of yourself in the last few years, like whilst becoming a surgeon and OBGYN?
I think it kind of ebbs and flows, but I do think that one of the things that I am proud of is being able to have a fairly balanced life. But I think that's because I've always been very conscientious of that. So going into residency, I've always prioritized, when I knew I was going to have one day off, I always made sure to have plans for that one day because I noticed on the weekends where I didn't make plans, I would feel like I wasted the day. Even if I was relaxing and that obviously has value, it felt like a wasted day to me. But even if I had lunch plans with a friend or like called, people back at home, I felt like that was a more like valuable day to me. And then, making sure that I had a therapist or some other healthy outlet like exercise, even if it's a 20-minute walk, I noticed that those things made the way that I performed and felt at work a lot better. But I recognize that that's really difficult for some people, but at least, having a balanced life made me feel like I was a better physician at work.
Yeah, there's definitely and relaxation has different like meanings. Like I'm just not I like to exercise, but like if someone told me that I had to spend my day off like rock climbing, I'd be like, that's more torture. Like why do I
I know
want
I'd
to do
be
that?
so mad. I'd,
Right.
I'd
But
be
I was
so
like, oh my
mad.
God, we're gonna go out and we're gonna go kayaking and rock climbing. And I'm like, I just want to be like either running around the park. I was in New York at the time, or in the gym, or sleeping. And it's okay also now that they're calling it bed rotting, like sitting around and doing nothing as like wellness. That's cool. I used to watch a lot of Seinfeld reruns in my apartment
That's what I
while
do even now.
yeah, while eating like takeout. That was my sort of like. Whew. So yeah, no, but you have to do that because you just spend a lot of time, just in your case in the OR or in clinic, and there's time, but you have. I think you're right. You have to sort of be very deliberate about it. Otherwise, like 4 years just like goes by and you never did anything.
Yeah, totally. Or like making that vacation that comes along really valuable and meaningful to you so that way you have something to look forward to. Like I know, you can't necessarily like count on those things coming. You have to have little like, delights along the way by having like fun plans, but like having a big vacation that you're looking forward to really makes it all worth it.
Yeah, and there's always the question of like, what should you spend what little money you have on, like, I mean, versus like saving and all that. Like, I mean, how did you handle that?
Oh, the guilt of making no money and spending money is terrible.
Yeah.
And especially, in fellowship, it doesn't get any better. It's just like a tiny little bit more. But you just have to remind yourself that it'll eventually work out. At least that's what I tell myself, that eventually it'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there is like a day coming when you'll be able to like actually like not be like in the red constantly, which is nice. And that's sort of like honestly like the biggest take home I always have for like residents. I just had lunch with a resident today who's a mentee, and they're doing great. But I was just reminding them like this is a very discrete period of time. That's not an excuse for anything that's like any toxicity that anyone's going through. Like everyone deserves like dignity and all that, but like it is a moment. It's not your whole life.